Hello, and welcome back to Tuesdays with Tuesday. My name is Tuesday, and I'm going to be reading to you a chapter from one of my books. I write fantasy fiction under the name Mary E. Twomey, and you can get my books pretty much wherever you buy your ebooks and paperbacks and audiobooks. Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Google Play, and like a bunch of other ones. Some of them are in your local library too. And if not, feel free to ask for them. I like when people go to the library. Libraries are fun. Today we're going to be reading chapter 2 out of my book Taste, which is book 1 in the Tearaway series. Tearaway is 9 books long. And in case you're like, hey, I just Googled it and this is not the cover. You are right. This is the original cover. I haven't gotten a book that is the updated cover. That is my bad. When you order it, it will have like a pretty floral motif. It's like really nice cover. I feel very lucky that graphic artists know more than me about books and designing. If you have not caught my other videos, we read the entire Savage Hearts book 1. So if you want to start with that one, all those videos are out so you can just like rip through them however fast or slow you want. But today, we're in Tearaway, which is based in Filipino folklore. I kind of really love learning about new folklore, or old folklore, obviously, but new to me. You know what I'm saying. All right. Chapter 2. Bev's Special Things. October Grace, could you stop being useless and pass me that clip? Bev looked at herself in the sliver of mirror that was visible through the mountains of clutter. There was a coat hanging on the edge of the broken profile-length glass, and a pink hat with a coffee-stained, crumpled flower on the brim that had seen better days. Something had nested in the brim and left a brown trail behind as a sweet, sweet memory of what the hat could have been. I looked around my mama's mobile home for the clip she wanted with the practiced patience of the dutiful daughter I was. If there was a superhero outfit for shutting up and smiling, I would have it in 5 different colors with a cape or something, so everyone would know of my shutting up powers without me having to say a word. Some people were good at weightlifting. I was good at smiling through the discomfort. Which clip do you want, Bev? They're all so pretty. It wasn't easy to find a clip in the chaos. Each one that littered the thigh-high pile to the left of the door in Bev's bedroom was in a state of disrepair or had been covered in some sort of animal mess. I kept my fingers tight inside my hospital gloves, my face composed through my internal wince. Nasty as she might turn, I just couldn't let Bev put rat feces in her hair, no matter how pretty her clips were once brushed clean. Most nurses didn't feel the need to have their own box of rubber gloves to carry around in their car, but most nurses didn't have a mama like Bev. Bev teased her thin blonde bangs so they had a little life in them. The rest of her hair had endured a good brush through at the insistence of her comb that was missing about 9 teeth. She held out her hand expectantly to me without moving her gaze from the softball width area on the mirror. Grab me something pink. There's a rosish one with pearls I was looking for the other day. Can you find it? I gave a good representation of searching for the accessory. I breathed through my mouth to avoid the sharp sting of ammonia that permeated my pores from all the rodent and feral cat excrement. I looked toward the mountain of clothing that stretched to the ceiling. To the left of it was the pile of torn and ratted towels that were precariously perched atop a busted record player Bev had sworn that she was just about to fix, ever since I was a kid. I fished through the sea of garbage at my feet that climbed up to my thighs in spots. I reached past the door stopper. That was actually just a large white rock. The rock was older than I was, but it still lit up when I touched it. Bev could never get it to light up, but swore that it was still a good door stopper. Tried to get her to put the doorstop outside with the other rocks, and she'd throw the biggest Southern Belle fit you'd ever seen. So the light-up white rock with jagged edges stayed put in the doorway of trash. Well, to me and everyone else in the world, it was garbage. To Bev, it was all her special things. I had an affinity for lavender-scented antibacterial hand sanitizer, so to each her own, I guess. I cast around the larvae-infested area that had her discarded yogurt containers. No, I don't see your rose clip. How about this one? It would look pretty with your shirt. I lifted a gray clip from the mess, swallowing my creeping anxiety at the maggots that squiggled and squirmed when my gloved hands swept near them. I knew how to approach the wildlife that had taken up residence in Bev's single-wide mobile home. Give them a good warning and they scattered for fear of being taken away from their golden opportunity. No one tried to kill them here. No one bothered. For each cockroach, maggot, or spider exterminated, there were hundreds more to take their place. It was the best life ever for them, not so much for humans. I made the mistake of drawing in a breath through my nose and winced. It wasn't the stench, which was abominable, make no mistake. The thing that stung me were the memories that swirled up inside of me like vomit. Every rotting tuna can, cat food container, aerosol can, and broken bathroom fixture swelled together to sing me its symphony of neglect. Pungent neglect smelled like childhood, and I wanted no part of that. I exhaled out the stink my memories clung to before I was paralyzed by the mental image of my 4-year-old self in the refuse. Ollie and Allie had waded through the chaos to play hide-and-go-seek with me when I was little, and they pretended to be young for my sake. My older brother and sister I loved, but Bev and the ammonia that rotted my soul and turned my stomach, not so much. I sucked down the sour memories and reached up for Ollie's mantra that never failed me. Keep your chin up, take it slow. This was second only to the ever-helpful, life is messy, and that's okay. That was enough to keep me rooted in the waste, not abandoning Bev to her devices, as Allie and Ollie had done so long ago. If I were a manipulative hoarder, I would need someone to not ditch me. I would want someone who knew my secrets and didn't run. I couldn't control Bev, but I could control myself. I had to live with myself every day, and I knew I couldn't do that if I turned my back on my mama, mentally ill as she was. Today, the cockroaches weren't prone to scatter. Instead, they inched toward me, like they were listening in on our boring talk. There were 2 neat little rows of them watching me, just as they had been doing last week in my car. I tried to write that off as a bad daydream, but here it was, happening all over again. My head whipped around in paranoia to check for a row of ants or eyebrow-looking caterpillars, but there weren't any in sight. The cockroaches barely fidgeted in the normal insect way, but instead stood still like little watchful soldiers waiting for me to do or say something interesting. These cockroaches weren't afraid of the bare bulb that shone overhead. For some reason, that little tidbit made a whimper catch in my throat. Usually they scattered like cockroaches are supposed to from any kind of illumination, but these ones, like the bugs last week, seemed sentient, controlled somehow. Cinderella got birds that braided her hair. I apparently got cockroaches watching my every move. I rock. My body wanted to shiver at the disgust coursing through me, but my brain had suppressed the need for that particular release. It had been too many years. The carpet in Bev's room had been a dusty rose color once upon a time, but now was a squishy brown underneath the piles of things, trash, newspapers, and animal droppings. Bev stabbed the gray clip into her perfectly poised blonde hair, as if she hated her skull and wanted to inflict pain upon it. She tilted her head and admired her colorful and precise makeup job in the smudgy mirror. She wore her usual Barbie pink eyeshadow, bright pink lipstick on thin lips, and complemented the look by applying thick, black mascara to convince herself that she had long eyelashes, like Allie and I had gotten, but she'd never had. I don't know how she always managed to look so put together when she could barely see her reflection. Oh, you're right. That does look pretty. I'll have to find that pink pearl one, though. If you see it, let me know. Will do. Her voice turned sharp, as she tended to do on a dime. Don't steal it now. I chewed on the correction I'd never needed from her. Of course not, Bev. No one's going to steal your special things. Can we go? I had someone to see, and every minute spent waiting in the mess felt like 20 minutes wasted. Now, hush up, October Grace. Your brother's traveled all the way from New York to see us. He ain't going nowhere. She adjusted her pants that I still couldn't believe were stark white without notable stains on them. In fact, We're staying away for 3 years. Let's say we make Ollie wait another 15 minutes. The stubbornness was already starting. I knew it would. There was too much baggage to be discreetly shoved under the rug. Not that there was a rug visible, or that another piece of crap could fit in the mobile home, but you get the picture. Ollie's already on his way there, so we've got to get going. I'd been standing in the one clear space that was exactly large enough for one 22-year-old woman if she kept her arms at her sides and didn't move much. I feared the massacre a sneeze would do. In fact, I feared breathing at all, but gave in to the hazardous habit with a grudging grimace. A line of ants skittered across my black sneakers. Someone new to the dysfunction might have made the rookie mistake of shuddering and thus would bring more rubble down upon her head. I knew to let the ants pass as I choked down a whine. I had tucked my jeans into my socks, so I knew the damage was only psychological. Luckily, I had been bred for enduring psychological damage. It was one of my many superpowers. Today, much like the cockroaches, the ants stopped their progression, formed 2 rows, and paused to stare at me, as the ones in the car had done. There wasn't accusation at me being associated with the clutter. They merely looked at me with curiosity, as if studying my mental state. I was personifying insects, so I guessed my mental state wasn't all that great. I had a good many patients at the prison I worked at who saw things that weren't real, but as I looked down at the ants tilting their miniature heads up at me, I knew I wasn't imagining things. Finally, they seemed to confer with each other about something and went on with their merry way to the never-ending pile of garbage for their day's feast. One woman's trash is an army of ants' treasure. I wondered, not for the first time, if my doses of crazy were from my father's genetics, whoever and wherever he was. I can't stand that he's meeting us there and we have to drive ourselves the whole way. Bev spoke the word drive like it had been brewed to her. I started to worry that our long-awaited reunion would devolve into the cattiness that usually exploded once Bev decided she had good reason to be offended. It was that stellar southern pride that she wore like a county state fair blue ribbon on her chest. Her self-importance always managed to annihilate even the most perfect days. I don't know why your brother doesn't come here. I mean, this was his home too. I knew better than to answer the obvious. Bev didn't see the chaos. She only saw a sea of treasures. Growing up with next to nothing made Beverly Jo Reese that much fonder of the things she could now afford on her meager salary as a receptionist for the smallest real estate office in northern Georgia. I don't know, I lied, but Ollie hasn't come to see us in years, so let's try to get along, okay? Just for one day, Bev. Okay, that was another lie. Ollie came back at least twice a year to visit me, but Bev didn't need to know about that. It would only hurt her, and I didn't want to do that. When am I not nice? Honey pie, I'll have you know that Jeannie came out of the bathroom with the back of her skirt tucked into her hose, and I didn't say a thing. Before I could comment that any friend would have told Jeannie to her face, instead of talking about it after the fact, I remembered that manners like those were lost on Bev. Did you leave your change of clothes in the car, honey pie? Bev tore her gaze from her reflection and zeroed in on me. I gulped, understanding a cornered animal's urge to bolt by any means necessary. Well, go ahead and get changed, October Grace. I'll wait. I looked down past my unzipped lavender hoodie to my I Heart Pee Wee Herman blue-fitted t-shirt. I'd worn the jeans without holes in the knees in anticipation of not being at the prison, stitching up inmates for a whole weekend. There was really no point in having pretty nails or fancy hairstyles, pulling the hours I normally did. Since I had very little life, I worked 10-hour shifts 6 days a week. Or maybe that was why I had very little life. I couldn't decide which was the chicken and which was the egg at this point. The job kept me occupied, and more than paid the few bills I acquired. However, I had precious little need for nice clothing, so I wore what I liked in the few moments not clad in blue hospital scrubs. I'm already dressed, Bev. This is what I'm wearing. Bev wrinkled her nose in distaste. Her home did not offend her, but her daughter's lack of social propriety always did. You and Oliver are meeting my special guy today. Could you put in a little bit of effort? A ponytail, really? When's the last time you got your hair done? I'm just saying. Bev was always just saying. And maybe try to do something about your face. No makeup, really? Maybe you could get away with that when you were 11, but you're in your 20s now. Your skin tone's uneven. It makes me absolutely cringe when I look at you up close. My cheeks heated, but I kept my mouth shut and my eyes downward. I tried to soothe the sting her words left me with by reminding myself that Bev had a problem, and there was nothing to be done about that, other than to be kind and try not to piss her off too badly. The swarming flies congregated nearby for their afternoon meal of putrefied food and animal crap. When I shifted too near their treasure, a handful of flies landed on my forearm, watching me like a dog watches its master. The little guys were also somehow too focused on my every movement, which freaked me out a little bit. I didn't want to be queen of the flies, but I didn't have the heart to shake them off. They weren't being annoying. They couldn't help how they looked. Totally gross. I would need a ton of hand sanitizer after this. Bev was still ramping up on all the things she hated about me, which I guess I asked for by not looking nice. If you don't wear any rings or jewelry at all, you're never going to catch a man. They're going to think you're simple. No man's going to spend money on a simple girl. Is that what you want? Are you simple, October Grace? And what did I tell you about wearing jeans? That my butt won't attract a husband if I insist on covering it up, I sighed, staring up at the ceiling. You're right. I'm sorry, Bev. But your new guy's going to want to see you. The rest of us are just there to shake his hand and sit in the background. You're the one he's been emailing and dating for 6 months. Hopefully he doesn't care about my butt. Her tone was a knife cutting on the edge of my psyche. Well, if you don't throw your boobs in his face like you did Gideon, that'll be true. I cringed, but didn't bother to correct her. Instead, I crossed my arms over my sizable breasts and hoped Pee Wee Herman would de-amplify anything that might stand out. Pee Wee Herman was good like that. And people say you can't find a good guy online. Do you know how many profiles I had to wade through? I don't want to speak ill about people I've never met, but there's some real trash out there. I was good at not saying what I was thinking, which was usually the perfect thing to say around Bev. He sounds nice. You'll love Ezra. He's wonderful, handsome, loaded, and holds the door open like a gentleman. He'll probably be too polite to tell you that you look like a slob in that outfit. He won't even tell you not to stand like a man or to stop slouching. Her tone cracked me like the sting of a belt. October Grace, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Stand up straight. Yes, ma'am. I obeyed immediately, but the onset of her fight voice made the backs of my arms start to itch. Ezra sounds great. You should be with someone who makes you happy. She deflated at my compliance. Ezra's wonderful. He bought me this. She displayed the gold necklace with a floating ruby that hung just above her obvious cleavage. It was more tasteful than her usual jewelry, which often sent oglers straight to her bounty like a giant neon sign that flashed "Eat at Joe's." I'm not sure why, but every time she said his name, all I could picture was a stooped elderly man with his hooked nose in a dusty book. Bev was nearing 50, but Ezra sounded like an old guy name. I truly hoped he was close to her age. The last one she'd been taken with had been in his late 20s, and had graduated high school the year before Ollie. Ollie was 8 years older than me, but even at my younger age, I knew that was weird. Bug carcasses I could suppress my shiver through, but Gideon? Dude still gave me the creeps. Gideon worked at a fast food joint just outside of town that now I made sure to avoid. He'd asked me to call him Big Daddy once. I hadn't meant to punch him, but that was the last of the Big Daddy talk. It was much harder for him to stare at my boobs with one eye swollen shut. Yet, I learned. Still not impossible. Bev turned from her precarious perch in her garbage utopia to examine me with a discontented sigh. It was laden with all the things her pageant failure of a daughter could have been, but wasn't. You wouldn't think those pageant judges would frown on 7 curse words in the middle of your Stars and Stripes song, but apparently that was the quickest ticket off the pageanting circuit. Mission accomplished. I'd lost the pageant, but I'd won my freedom from being a 6-year-old teetering precariously in high heels and smeared in what felt like clown makeup. Well, I guess your outfit will have to do. I hope Oliver didn't wear jeans. Ugh, you kids. I have to do everything for you. I don't want Ezra to think we're trash. I I climbed over the mountain of clothes, ducked under the overhang of drying newspapers, squeezed through the 2 walls of debris in various shades of decay and rot to the door, otherwise known as the escape route. My own personal ticket to paradise. That brings us to the end of Chapter 2 of Taste, Book 1 in the Tearaway series. I am very glad that you took this time to read with me. I'm glad when you take the time to sit down and enjoy your life at all. And I hope that this little time with me was enjoyable for you, because I really liked it. Did you get to see any of my fishies swimming around? Because, wouldn't you know, they are still alive. I would like 10 points for keeping fish alive. I'm very good at it. And did you hear my dog midway through being a silly pants? This is Cricket, my toy pom, and I love her so much. She lets me read to her, well, while I'm reading to you, and she is very good to me. I hope that you are good to yourself today, and I will see you next Tuesday for Chapter 3 in Taste.